In this video, I'm going to teach you how to critique a portfolio. I'm going to begin by showing you how to critique a portfolio from a holistic or kind of a big picture perspective. And then I'm going to teach you how to critique a portfolio on a page level detail. So you can either export your portfolio as a PDF and perform this critique using Adobe Acrobat, or you can do it within InDesign. In order to do this critique, I'm going to do it in InDesign, but I have already hidden the grid information on my master pages, and then I'm going to go to View and Screen Mode Presentation in order to see this. Now, when I have had my portfolio critiqued by a professional designer or mentor, or I have critiqued other people's portfolios, we always start with sort of an overview of how the portfolio looks and feels. And so I'm going to go really fast just with my arrows and take a look at how things appear, just kind of to get a feel for the big picture. And so all I'm doing is just using my arrow just to take a look at everything. And what I'm looking at here is kind of the overall style and feel of it. Okay, now I'm going to go back, and I would say overall this portfolio is crisp and clean. It's minimalist. It doesn't have anything that would really distract a viewer. And it's easy to understand the content kind of right off the bat. I can tell what I'm looking at. I can see the purpose of the assignments. I can see, nice, clear images and examples of what I'm supposed to be looking at. The presentation of information is hierarchical and is consistent from page to page. And so that's really wonderful. I will say that looking at the portfolio in the state that it's in right now, it's lacking in some of the interesting things that might be either convey personality or convey a personality of the designer who did this, or maybe establish a connection between a potential employer by replicating some of the design effects on the employer's website. There's also quite a bit of negative space, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but the bright white might um, look better if it had maybe a little bit of color added to it, maybe a little bit more interest in the texture perhaps. But overall, it's very straightforward, and that's kind of at the very beginning level of a portfolio. That's what we want. Let me go ahead now and take a look at it on a page-by-page basis. So if I start from the beginning, we can see here for this title page, we might want a little bit more of a wow factor of an image. Now mine is incomplete and I've put it in here as a placeholder, but we want to make sure that this image really is the very best that our work has to offer. There's also some negative space down at the bottom here that perhaps could be filled in with some colorful element, or a band of um, color or texture. There could be a very soft background on this page, nothing too distracting, but it could be kept very simple like this, or it could add just a little bit more excitement. As we move to this page, you can see kind of on a page level detail that there's some inconsistencies in the presentation of images here. You can see this one has an outline to it, whereas these do not. And so I would go through this on my revision and make sure that that's consistent, whether they all have borders or none of them have borders, making sure that they're consistent. You can see here that there's a little bit of gap and inconsistency in the placement of this swatch versus this one, and this one. So cleaning up the alignment of these bottom elements and making sure that they align perfectly with these elements above will work much better. Now, I can see here that the wayfinding device here that we've put in the lower right-hand corner to indicate that this is skill building. On my computer, as I'm looking at it, is a little bit light. It doesn't show a lot of color. It, of course, depends on everybody's settings, but it looks a little bit light here. So I may go ahead and increase the size of that just a bit, or pardon me, increase the color and saturation just a little bit. I also think that even though this is very helpful information, it would be nice if it correlated back to this color in some way. So I'm going to go ahead and change the font on the revision here to reflect a color that's more in line with this color, so that these can both be used as wayfinding devices throughout. And again, it'll only work if I increase the saturation value of this color. As far as for these images go, there's quite a bit of negative space in between, and that's okay for right now. The text over here works well. It's in the absence of a grid, it does sort of seem like it's floating. So what I may do is move this text up a little bit so that it's in line with this image. It'll be breaking, as we say, breaking the grid just a little bit, because it's kind of disrupting that underlying spiral of the golden mean that we've established. But I think in this case, it will work a little bit better. This image, or pardon me, this page looks nice as well. I'm still a little bit kind of wanting more on the presentation of these images. So it's possible that I might want to reduce the size of this floor plan just a little bit to bring some more prominence to this perspective. Now, this isn't the greatest scan ever, so it's kind of got some wrinkles to it and a little bit of shadow. So this, I could rescan this image and it would look a lot better. Same thing here. If I'm going to change the page that precedes it, which is a very similar assignment, then I'll go ahead and apply the same changes to this page as well, so that there's some consistency here. This image, the images on this page are also working well. I like the alignment of these two, top and bottom. The placement of the text box is okay, although I could move it up just a little bit. But when I look at this page again, I'm going to start to think about the alignment of these two elements here. I think perhaps if I were to do a right justification on this text instead of a center justification, it'll look better and more in alignment with this treatment here, because we've got this right justification happening as well. I might also crop more of the horizon and background for these two images, just because we want to make sure that these images show as large as possible. And I think if I got rid of some of that border, they would look better too. So now that I have an understanding that I want to align, see how it looks to align the right edge of this project description with the edge of this, what's in this text box here, I'm going to make that change on all of my sheets. And then on a sheet by sheet basis or a page by page basis, I'm going to go ahead and see if it makes sense to align it with the top image here. I'm going to do so on that. Keeping in mind, of course, that there's still, again, some potential for a background or a border or something that encloses these two images and makes them feel like they're of the same part. You know, I'm even thinking maybe a band of color underneath that kind of stretches through these two. But again, just looking at some ideas here. This is a really nice page as well. It's working nicely for me. I do think that the alignment down here works well. That grid served me very well in the design of this page. But I am wondering if it would look nicer if I were to create a box, not around each individual one of these images, but extend a black box around here like this, so that it feels more like a part of this skill building box over here. Okay, this is a nice example where I'm starting to see a larger image. And so I like how this looks and feels. And so I'll probably use the same effect on that other image where I was looking at the SketchUp renderings and feeling like they were a little small. This version I like better. Okay, so for this page, of course, we've got a placeholder. Your version of the portfolio will have beautiful swatches rendered over here. What I may do for this image is uh, crop out the labels here. And what I may do is use this font and make it appear more like the labels that we have down here. Oftentimes we cut and paste images in from a project into our portfolio and we leave the text or some of the information from the old project into our images in the portfolio, and it messes with the alignment and consistency of the portfolio itself. This happens a lot if you bring in a CAD file into a portfolio and you have the kind of the generic drafting style CAD text on your labels, and it's never as pretty as the text that you're using for your portfolio. And so that's a recommendation that I would make for myself, is to cut those out and replace those with really nice text that matches this and that is in alignment with the labels themselves. I may also kind of toy with moving these boxes down or up, maybe aligning the bottom ones with the bottom edge of this and the top with, the invisible top edge of this text. Or I may, keep this kind of asymmetrical balance between these, the left and the right side of my page as is. It doesn't bother me. It's kind of interesting, but it might be something that I play with. Okay, same thing here with the previous version of this page. You can see here the outline of this box is missing, and I don't know, I kind of like it without the border around it. I think it softens it a little bit. So I may decide to not have borders on anything now looking at this page. Um, and again, this is just the process of reviewing a document and seeing what you like and don't like. I can see that there's an inconsistency between this margin and this margin that needs to be fixed. I may also adjust this label into something like this travertine table, so that this top doesn't get quite so close to area rugged. They're so close that they're bleeding into each other. I also, of course, have a watermark on this image, so I have to make sure that I get the copyright permission to use that image without the watermark on it. This is also looking nice, really nice balance. You can see that this is aligned with the center of the center line of these swatches, and that's working really nicely as well. Overall, this page works really well. Same thing here. Again, I think a lot of the strengths of the preceding page can also be applied to this one. Okay, here's my next rendering page, and you can see even though my page isn't complete, it's still a really nicely sized image, high resolution, so it's stretching out and looking really nice. But here, because of the edges, they might be a little bit messy. So here I might crop a little bit more and uh, add a frame if it looks good, something very subtle, maybe just a very simple outline, maybe matching this color would work well. So the same thing on this page as the similar version that we looked at earlier when we had the hand rendered textures, just kind of cropping out the text here and making it consistent with the rest of the text in the portfolio would be where I would start here. Okay, you can see here I've got some placeholders, and again, these still need to come in. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the layout of this page because there's still a lot more that comes in. As you create your portfolio, it's helpful to use this as a tool to create placeholders. A lot of times when we're reworking a portfolio, we want to revisit old work and improve it. And sometimes it's helpful to put a placeholder box within your portfolio so you know what things are missing and what you need to add to. So these are helpful. They can be a little distracting. You can see mine's a really, really bright teal. And that's because I really want to make sure that I don't forget to put that image in there before I show this portfolio to somebody else. Okay, so here's another one. Again, starting to see the same things on a page level detail that need to be changed. So usually the approach that I take for this is if I'm going to change, for example, the justification on this text box, I do it to every single slide first, and then I go through and adjust all the margins on every slide. Then I adjust any changes to this on every slide. And that makes sure that you catch everything instead of kind of making each individual change on each page and then trying to remember to make all the changes on the subsequent pages. So make a single change, apply it to the same place on every page, and then move on to the next type of change. The rest of these are, right now too hard to tell what we need to do, but I will say that right off the kind of right off of a quick look here, I definitely want to make sure that when I put the images in that are being referred to by these placeholders, I want these renderings to be as big as possible. So I may pull this text box to try to have it align with the borders of this so it's really small because I want nice big images there. Okay, now at the conclusion here, you can see this is the last page of my portfolio right now. And like a good speech, you want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end or a conclusion. And so right now, my portfolio stops abruptly. So what I would want to add here at the very end is maybe a really beautiful image on a page. I create a new page in my template, and then I want to create this really beautiful image and maybe a little note that says, thank you for reviewing my portfolio, and then my name, my phone number, email, and any other contact information. Because a lot of times it's nice to just kind of close, thank the viewer, even though you don't know the viewer, or you may not have met the viewer, but just take a brief moment to thank them for looking at your portfolio and then instantly give them the contact information, because that way, if they end the portfolio and they kind of land and stop on a page, immediately they go, oh, let me make a note of this person's email, or let me send them an email right now and see if they want to come in for an interview. So having that final conclusion page, again, still in line with the design style, still using the grid, still using, some of the images that you've brought in up to that point is really, really important. So now after looking at this portfolio, kind of from a holistic view to see how it feels and what it needs overall, and then down to the page level detail, you can see that even though this portfolio has a ton of work represented and a ton of time spent making the actual portfolio template itself, it is still far from done.